In this video, we begin with the cutting of the shirt sleeve and collar, then the cutting of the palazzo trouser, sewing of the trouser, and sewing of the shirt. Welcome everyone. So the first thing we'll be doing will be to take 1 inch downwards all through like that, and that 1 inch will be our folding allowance. Then half of it all through will be our buttonhole line, and that's the most important line in this tutorial. The next thing we'll be doing will be to take our 8 inches line, and that will be our armhole and also our chest line. Then our 10 inches for our bust point, and also our shirt length, which is based on preference. We've not taken our tummy line, and we'll be taking that soon. But for the next thing to do, we'll be taking our neck measurement, and that will be 3.5 downwards and also 2.5 upwards. And we'll be taking the measurement on the buttonhole line, the 3.5 downwards on the buttonhole line, and the 2.5 will be from the buttonhole line. So after taking both points, we'll be joining both points with a curve, and we'll be going straight to the making of the shoulder. And for the shoulder, we'll be taking 7.5 inches from the buttonhole line like that. We'll be marking it with a point, and we'll be going downwards by 1 inch. We're going downwards by 1 inch because your shoulder isn't actually straight. Your shoulder is slanted from the tip of the back of your neck to the tip of your shoulder that joins your hand. So we take our shoulder measurement as you see in SS. So we'll be taking the actual shoulder measurement now, which is 7.5 inches from the buttonhole line. Then we'll be adding our sewing allowance, which is ½ inch for this tutorial. So we'll be adding ½ inch for the tutorial for the shoulder sewing allowance, but we'll be adding 1 inch for other measurements of the body. So we'll be joining the neck to the buttonhole line like that. We'll be taking the straight measurement of the shoulder and also be placing it on the chest line, and we'll be joining both points with a straight line. Actually, I'll be joining both points with a broken line. After doing that, at the approximate middle of that line, I'll be taking 3/4 inches forward like that. Then I'll be joining a curve to that point from the shoulder, and I'll be using my French curve to join the point to the armhole, or what I call the chest line. Then I'll also be joining it upwards like that with the armhole curve. And after doing that, the next thing we'll be doing will be to take our chest measurement. Our chest measurement will be divided by 4. Then we'll add 1 inch for sewing allowance. The next thing to do will be to take our tummy line. Our tummy line is 16 inches from our top line. So we'll take 16 inches on 2 points and join both points with a straight line, and that will be our tummy line. We'll not use our bust line for now because our bust line will actually be used for our dart. So we'll take our tummy measurement divided by 4 from the buttonhole line. After marking, we'll add 1 inch for our sewing allowance. Then we'll also take the hip measurement divided by 4 from the buttonhole line. After marking, we'll also add 1 inch for our sewing allowance. So after doing that, we'll be joining the hip to the tummy with a straight line. Then we'll also be joining the chest to the tummy line with a curve. So after joining that, we'll be joining both lines with a straight line, and that will be that. But that will not actually be the final line for the side, because the dart will actually alter that line. So to get our dart, we'll divide the hip line into 2 and we'll mark. So we'll also divide the tummy line into 2 and also mark. Then finally, we'll divide the bust line into 2 and mark. All 3 lines will join with a straight line. So after joining with a straight line, we'll take ½ inch on both sides from the hip and join up to 1.5 inches before the bust line, and that will actually be our dart. After doing that, we'll just straighten out our buttonhole line, because that is actually one of the most important lines for this tutorial. Then our side panel will be altered, and that will be by taking the dart measurement that we took and add it to the side. So for the hip, we will take 1 inch, which is the size of the dart, and we'll add it to the side. For the tummy, we will take about ½ inch, which is the size of the dart, and add it to the side. Then we'll join both points with a straight line. Then after joining both points with a straight line, we'll join the chest to the tummy with a curve. And after doing that, that will be all. I gave a 1.5 inch extension when cutting out the front piece, and that is because we will be bending ½ inch to meet our original 1 inch folding line, and that's the major reason for the 1.5 inches extension I gave when cutting out the fabric. So after doing that, we actually cut out 2 pieces of the front piece, and that is both front pieces opposite each other. That's either the front side facing the front side or the back side facing the back side, and that will be all for our front piece. Next will be the cutting of our back piece. To cut out the back piece, we'll fold at the buttonhole line like that into 2. So we'll place the back piece on that buttonhole line. After placing it on the buttonhole line from the neck to the down line, we'll use it to trim off the shoulder line of the front piece. So we use the front piece shoulder line to trim off or to shape in our back piece shoulder line. Then we'll readjust downwards by at least 2 inches. You can make yours more than 2 inches, but if it is more than 2 inches, it really affects the measurement of the neck. So after folding by 2 inches, we'll bend 1 inch inwards like that. Then after bending 1 inch inwards, we'll cut off the back piece. So mind you, as we are cutting off the back piece, it actually means we are cutting off the inclusion of the dart and every other thing. So if you look closely, you will see the bending on the shoulder has actually added to the height of the armhole from the top. So for your armhole, I choose to use 8 inches because my client actually wants a tight armhole. You can make yours 9 or even 10 inches since you are working for an adult. So for the neck, we'll just make our curve like that for the neck, and we'll trim from the starting point to meet the curve. So as you can see, we succeeded in creating our back piece, and that's that. Now for our dart on the back piece, we can just go ahead and use the front piece to recreate the dart. Why I usually cut off my dart is in case I want to chalk it with my marker or a chalk, it will be easier for me to just open up and chalk it off like that. Now for our sleeve, we'll start by measuring the armhole of both pieces, that is the front and the back pieces joined together, and that will give us a glimpse of what we are working with. Mind you, whatever we get from that armhole measurement will be reduced by 1 inch after joining the front and the back piece together. So on cutting our sleeve, we'll start by rolling a straight line on the top like that. Then we'll be taking 8 inches measurement downwards like that. Now I'm working on a sleeve that I want the armhole to be tight. Then at the half of the 8 inches, which is for our mark, then I'll take the curve measurement from that half mark. Remember, I took the armhole measurement while I was measuring the armhole, so I'll be making the curve measurement from that half mark. So wherever it stops, I'll just mark. I hope you understand what I did there. I took the measurement from the top, then from the half point, I bend it to form a curve. But what I actually did here was to make sure the measurement I want is 1 inch longer than the armhole. So if the armhole was, let's say, like 10, that curve I got there was 11. So that was just basically what I did there. So after taking my sleeve desired length, I'll also be taking my folding allowance, which is 2.5 inches. Then I'll be taking my round arm. I'll be working with 13 inches, but that is 6.5. But I'll be adding my sewing allowance, which is ½ inch. And from that armhole down point, I'll join to the round arm. Now I'll go straight to the cutting of the sleeve. The cutting of the sleeve process is pretty simple if you just follow the way I explain it right now. So when I get to that point where I'm supposed to cut the folding, I'll just bend it inwards like that before I do any cutting. because I don't want to assume, and when I start sewing, the folding will be smaller or bigger than the borders of the sleeve. So as you can see, I've succeeded in cutting out my sleeve, and I'll be checking it on the armhole measurement I took. Now, why I said that sleeve armhole is 1 inch bigger than our armhole is because if I check it now, it will be the same. But after sewing it, that armhole will actually lose 1 inch. So I hope you understand that. So we'll be going straight to the collar. So the first thing for the collar will be to take our neck measurement. Now, while taking your neck measurement, you take it all through like that to the end of the front piece, from the neck of the back to the end of the neck of the front. Then whatever you take, you double it. That will be your full neck measurement. I'm just using this this collar pattern drafting illustration just to teach you how to cut off your collar, but I won't be actually using this while I'm making my collar, because after cutting off like this, I'll still check my neck, increase it to my desired size, then make my collar. So for this now, I took the measurement I took on the neck and I divided it by 2. Those are the 2 lines you see there. Then on that other line, I took 1 inch upward, and I'll be joining that 1 inch upward to the half point I took there. So I'll be taking a 1 inch parallel curve all through like that. I'll use my tape rule to make sure I get a 1 inch that is parallel to that curve. So I'll use my tape rule to check and make sure everything is 1 inch all through like that. After confirming my curve with my tape rule to make sure everything is 1 inch all through, I'll use my curve to join all points together like that. So like I said earlier, this collar I'm actually cutting is a little bit smaller if you check very well. I'm just showing you the prototype of how a collar looks like. So if you want to cut yours, you first of all make sure you finish sewing your shirt before you start cutting your collar. So I took our measurement, which is 15, that is 7.5. Then I'll also take the measurement on the top, which is 7.5. But I'll go 1 inch backwards on the top, and from that 1 inch backwards, I will join to the down point, which is 7.5, and that will give me the down part of my collar. Like I said, just a recap, take your full measurement divided by 2 on your neck, divide it into 2, then from the end point, increase it by 1 inch on top, then join to the half point with a curve like that, and it's just straightforward like that. So this is the down part of the collar. The down part of the collar is curved because if you button up what is curved like this, it actually covers each other. But if it is straightforward and you button up, it won't overlap perfectly on each other. One will just fall down or one will fall up. So for the upper piece of my collar, I'll first of all transfer that measurement to the other side like that. Then I'll take the measurement of the upper piece that I'll be placing the upper piece on. What I actually mean is that line I took now will be where I'll be placing the upper piece of the collar on. So I'll just take the measurement upwards like that from where I stopped the cutting. You can see exactly that line is coming from where it stopped on the curve upwards like that. So I took ½ inch backwards. But what I'll be doing now will be just to draw a straight line from that point the collar met that curve. So I will draw a straight line, then I'll take 2 inches on that point like that. Then I'll go as big as 3 inches or even more, depending on how big or how exaggerated I want my collar to be. So I'll be joining, and with that I'll be using a curve, and that will be the upper part of my collar. I'm just trying to make things a little bit more detailed so that when you are sewing you don't have issues. And mind you, for the making of the video, I will not be showing the making process of the collar all through like that. So if you really have any issues on how to make a collar, I have several videos where I make detailed explanation on how you sew a 2-piece collar like this. So if you want to make a 2 pieces collar like this, check most of my videos. I'm just giving you a view of how to cut and make your collar. So we are done with the collar. We'll just fold our fabric into two, then we'll use our back piece pattern paper that we just finished cutting to cut out the fabric exact measurement, no excesses given, and that's that. For the sleeve, we'll just use our pattern to cut out the exact size on our fabric, no excesses given, no extra inches added. We'll just make two pieces of it. That's one for the right hand and the other for the left hand, and both will be of the same, or should I say exact. So the first thing we'll be doing will be to take 2 inches for our seam allowance, and we'll be adding that to the back piece. The next thing will be to take 1 inch on top for our waist, because the back waist and the front waist will be of different heights. Then we'll take 12 inches for our crotch depth, and after doing that we'll divide our hip by 4 and we'll mark it on the waist and the crotch line and join both with a broken line, as you can see there. Our trouser length is 41.5 inches, so we'll be marking 42 because half inch will be used to join the waistband. Then after that we'll be taking 2 inches downwards for our bending allowance. So we'll be going straight to the process, and that will be to divide our waist by 4 and mark it. So after marking it, we'll add ½ inch, and that ½ inch will be for our dart. Then we'll divide the crotch into 2, so we'll join that point to the other point like that with a curve, and that's that. We're taking the connecting curve from our waist to our hip. So after we're taking that out, we'll take our thigh measurement. Our thigh is actually 24 inches, so we'll be marking half of it, which is 12 inches. And after doing that, we'll be adding additional 1 for crotch ease. We'll mark 2 inches on the ankle line. So we'll mark 22.5 inches for our knee line. We'll be needing this knee line, so we'll join both points with a line. I mostly use broken lines. Remember the 2 inches we took the other time. We'll also take 1 inch on the knee line. So after taking 1 inch, we'll join the 1 inch point to the 2 inch point with a line. As you can see, the lines are slant. Then we'll also join that line to the hip, to where the hip curve stops from the waist. So we'll join into that point. So that is actually the female figure from the back, from the waist to the hip to the knee to the ankle. So we'll take 1 inch downward, then we'll take our thigh measurement from our slant line, then we'll join with a curve. We'll take 2.5 inches to get our curve upwards too. After doing that, we'll just go straight to taking our ankle measurement. After taking our ankle measurement, we'll join all points, and after joining all points, we'll straighten all the important lines from broken lines to straight lines. We'll also straighten the lines for the upper parts too. Then for the bending, we'll just take the line down for the slant line. Then we'll take the ankle measurement exactly, which is 6.5. Go upward by 2 inches also and take the same ankle measurement and make sure everything corresponds so that the bending will be perfect. So as it is now, we have a standard female trouser, but to make it into a palazzo now, we have to add extra inches on the ankle. You can add 1, 2 or 3, so depending on how wide you want the ankle to be. So as you can see now, I'm joining the crotch to the extra inches I added, and I'll be doing that on the other side also. And while doing that on the other side, I'll be joining the extra inches to, for this part I'm joining to the crotch. For the other part, I'll be joining the extra inches to the hip. So from the hip, I'll take a straight line to join the extra inches, and that will conclude the front piece of our palazzo trouser. We'll take 1/2 inch downwards on the waist, and this is as a result of you wanting your front piece waist to be lower than your back piece waist because of your bum bum. So after that, we'll check our waist measurement. The 1/2 inch downwards doesn't really alter the measurement actually remains the same. So what we'll do next now will be to take 2 inches from the extra inches we added to get our palazzo shape. So we'll take 2 inches all through like that, and that 2 inches will be the sewing allowance that will be added to the back piece. So we'll take it all through from the ankle to the waistline, and that will also help us in forming our back piece. So after taking our 2 inches all through like that, we'll use a straight line to join all the points we've taken from the ankle to the waistline. And as you can see, the extra 2 inches line we'll be getting will be exactly of the same shape of the front piece. So the back piece will just be a replica of the front piece. The only difference will be that the back piece will be wider than the front piece by 2 inches. So we'll just follow the shape all through like that. So after we finish joining all points, the next thing we'll be doing will be to add 1/2 inch to the back piece. Now we are actually forming the back piece, so we'll add 1/2 inch and we'll join to the new waist point from the added 2 inches. So after joining, we'll take the waist measurement of the front piece, add 2 inches and transfer it to the back piece. Wherever it ends, we'll join to the front. Since we are working on a high waist palazzo, our dart will be 4.5 or 5 inches. After taking your dart on the front and the back piece, we'll work on the pocket separately, and I'll tell you why later. For the making of the pockets, we'll start by marking 7 inches downwards and 2 inches on the waistline. We'll make a curve to join both points and we'll cut off. And that curve will actually be the shape of our pocket. After cutting out the shape on our front piece of the trouser, we'll add interface. Like you see, we've added interface to give it strength. Then we'll use that front piece to cut out the exact shape on our pocket, because we'll be joining the pocket to the front piece. So we'll cut it out, and after cutting it out, we'll join both with an 1/2 inch stitch from the top to the bottom. After joining the front piece to the pocket, we'll notch all through to make the bending easier, because we'll be bending it outwards. So after notching will turn, notching will actually make the turning process a bit easier. So we use a pressing iron to straighten out things. So after straightening things, we'll also be cautious and make sure the front is facing the front and the pocket is facing the other side. So we'll continue adjusting and using the pressing iron to straighten things until we get a perfect job. Because what we are actually doing now will still make a half-inch stitch all through. That's a half-inch top stitch. So we just have to make sure we've perfectly arranged it before we start making our half-inch stitch from the bottom to the top. We've succeeded in top stitching the curved part of our pocket. That top stitch will be what will make the front face the front and the back to face the back. The next thing to do will be to fold the pocket into two like that, making sure the folded part is on the same line with the fabric. Then we use our pressing iron to create a gaiter and make it permanent. We'll use the pressing iron to also straighten the front and the back. To round up the sewing of the pocket, we have to sew the down line of the pocket. The down line of the pocket is the down part of the pocket that has a curve. But before we do that, you have to use your pressing iron to make sure everywhere is straightened. Then you either top stitch or you make an inner stitching, but for this we'll top stitch like this. After top stitching the down line of the pocket, you can see what we got. The next thing to do will be to sew the fabric and the pocket together on the side and on the top. We've basically finished the pocket making process by top stitching the fabric and the pocket together on the side and on the top. So the next thing we'll do now will be to explain why I said we should make the pocket separately. So after finishing this pocket for this leg, we'll bring the other leg that we haven't really done anything on to trim this leg that we've actually finished making the pocket on. So because the measurements we got from our initial pattern drafting we used in cutting the leg will be what we want after we finish. When I make the second pocket, since the first pocket was trimmed, we'll now use the first pocket to trim the second pocket exactly the way we did the first pocket, because we want our outcome to be the same measurements we got when we were doing our pattern drafting. So we'll use the first pocket we made to trim out the second pocket. So both front pieces would be of the same shape and size after making both pockets, and that is the goal. So we'll go straight to the joining process, and I've placed the back piece on the front piece. So we'll sew the right part and we'll also sew the left part, and we'll do that for the other front piece too. So we've succeeded in joining both right and left part of each legs of our palazzo trouser. So the pockets are covered by the joining. So the next thing to do will be to join both legs from the crotch point. So we'll join to the right and we'll also join from the crotch point to the left, making sure both meet at the crotch point. Next on our menu will be the fixing of the zip, and immediately we finish fixing the zip, we'll work on the band. So we've succeeded in reopening one side of the palazzo trouser, and how long or high your opening is a determinant of how easy it is for you to wear when you actually wear. We'll be needing a zip, a button, a hand needle, and a thread fixed to it. So on explaining how the band works, the band was folded 1.5 inch on both sides, and half-inch width was also folded inwards. As you can see, the band is 1.5 inches high. It could be 2 inches if you prefer, whatever height you decide to use. will determine how long your trouser will be, will affect your trouser length. I actually placed an hemming gum inwards and used a pressing iron to join both sides together because my band is supposed to be curved, but because my band is not curved, that is the main reason why I use an hemming gum to hold it together. So after fixing, I could have a perfect finishing. So on fixing your zip, it's pretty easy. I've done it countless times on my videos. You can check and get the explanation on how to make or how to fix your zip on the side of your trouser. So it's just to sew one part to the other, then the other part to the other, or you can make use of the pattern where you sew one part, then you use the other part to actually cover the other part. So after fixing it, you fix your band, you make use of your hand needle to fix your button, and that will be all. And then we take our measurement from the waist down to our desired length on the side. You can do that on either sides of the trouser. So after which you bend both together, use your pressing iron to create a line. Then after creating a line, you open up and you bend both separately to be on the same line. So that's an easy way of getting your trouser length. So the excesses were more than 2 inches because we didn't take into cognizance the addition that will be caused by our band. But if you check my previous video on how to cut a trouser, you will see how I explain how band can affect the length of a trouser. So after doing that, we'll do that for the other leg, and that will be all. So we begin the sewing process of the shirt, and the first thing is to fold by 1 inch and sew. Then we also took our dart as we explained during the pattern drafting. So we did the same for the other piece, and that's that. So as you can see, whatever we did for one part, we also did for the other part. If you are sewing yours, you can make the part that will contain the button a 3/4 folding, and the part that will contain the buttonhole a 1 inch folding, depending on your preference. Next on the list is joining the front piece to the back piece, and we'll be joining both through the shoulder line. Both shoulders are of the same measurement, so we'll just join the right to the right and the left to the left. And after doing that, you can see what we got. So we've also succeeded in taking the dart on the back piece. So the next will be the sleeve. So for the sleeve, we've already explained how we cut our sleeve, but we've already folded and sewn our folding allowance. We'll just be checking to see if the armhole corresponds, and after that we'll be joining the armhole. So after joining the armhole, the next thing we'll just do will be to make buttonholes. So after making buttonholes, we'll fix corresponding buttons to match the buttonholes on their positions. Then we'll make a collar and fix and also sew the downline. If you don't know how to make collar, you can check most of my videos. I have very detailed explanation on how to do that.